Bad news for the folks in Wyoming. The Federal Reserve Bank once again rejected crypto bank Custodia's bid for the Fed supervision. Joining us now is CoinDesk Global Policy and Regulation Managing Editor Nick Day, who is also the editor of CoinDesk State of Crypto Must-Read newsletter. Happy Friday,
Nick. Hey, good morning and happy Friday.
Hey, yeah. So, it's another bad piece of bad news for Custodia. We just had Caitlin Long here talking about just a few days ago, talking about how they were applying for Fed oversight. What happened?
Yeah, so last month the Federal Reserve Board announced that it had rejected Custodia's application to basically get Fed supervision. Custodia asked for the Fed board to reconsider its decision, and the Fed board appears to have done so, and once again decided to, uphold its rejection. The vote was unanimous. Every Fed governor voted against reconsidering Custodia's application. Last month, when the initial vote came out, every governor had voted against allowing or granting Custodia this Fed supervision. So, both times it was a unanimous decision.
And
clearly,
they said, it's like, tell us how you really feel, everyone. But did they explain why? Did they give any specifics as to what they want to see out of Custodia, or that is just never going to happen?
So they haven't published a very detailed account yet. The press releases so far have just said that they have concerns about things like the risk management practices and about how certain risks might affect Custodia. We've seen also these joint statements from the Fed and other banking regulators, basically saying that they're concerned about just how cryptocurrencies might be held by banks, what kind of custody and protection mechanisms might be in place. So, presumably all of that's connected, but we haven't seen a specific like Custodia accounting yet from the Fed.
So any reaction from Caitlin Long's side?
I haven't seen one yet. I assume they're, it's got to be disappointing. Obviously, Custodia has been after this for a while, going so far as to sue the Fed. One thing that did happen is a judge overseeing Custodia's lawsuit against the Fed did allow an amended complaint to go through, denying a previous motion to dismiss from the Fed as moot. So this court case is continuing. We'll see how that develops. But at least for now, Custodia still has that particular option alive, and they're able to pursue it.
So, in another part of Washington, the SEC is coming down hard on a guy, the only person in the world who watches this show, Do Kwon. What's happening with him?
Yeah, so this happened last week. We talked about it a little bit then, but I went through the actual filing more in detail for the newsletter this week. And basically, it's comprehensive. The SEC has sued a lot of crypto companies over the last several years. This is the first time I can remember where the SEC basically went through a Howey analysis on each of the tokens that it's looking at. And, went into detail. I think it's up to, interpretation as to how strong these Howey analyses are, but it is a comprehensive filing. So the SEC, alleged that wrapped Luna, Terra USD, mirrored assets, they're all securities, and basically everything from the Terraform Labs ecosystem. And this is interesting. It's the first time we're seeing the SEC very explicitly say, okay, the stablecoin is a security, and here is why we believe so. Some of the other tokens I think are less surprising. Mirrored assets representing stocks. Yeah, you can it's a lot easier to see how that might be a security, in the SEC's eyes. But this is going to be an interesting case. Just for the, I don't want to say precedent that it sets, but just for the kind of, the inside look at how these regulators are looking at, some of these assets that will be applicable to, other projects still out there.
Couldn't you argue, though, that this was such a specific case, with Anchor and the algorithmic stablecoin, that it doesn't set that much of a precedent because it's really a lot of it applies to just this specific stablecoin and would not be easily applied to other projects?
Oh yeah, absolutely. But the fact that it's still out there now, there is an analysis. One of the big issues that I think the industry's had with the SEC in terms of guidance and lack thereof is it's hard to say, okay, this enforcement action is applicable to these other projects out there, because you don't necessarily know what the analysis looks like or what the specific criteria the SEC is using. This case actually, or the complaint, has a fair amount of analysis in it, drilling down to these specific tokens. So it's something that you can at least look at and say, okay, well, if I'm launching a token doing XYZ, and the SEC has already said that they view these specific details and these specific attributes as being security, then it might be somewhat easier for you to look at. And then if a court says, yeah, that makes sense, and we're gonna go ahead with this, or we're gonna rule in favor, or even if a jury does that, then that just gives it more weight.
Take it a step further. Do you think that then puts some of the exchanges on notice for having traded, let's say, Wrap Luna, maybe Coinbase's or whatever, that might have had it on their exchanges? Does that put them on notice that, hey, you know what? We find all these to be securities. If you had them listed on your exchange, you're in trouble?
It wouldn't surprise me. I think the SEC has already come out and said as much for other tokens that we've talked about on this show before. The Coinbase insider trading case is probably the really easy example, because quite a few tokens were alleged to be securities on that, in that filing. At this point, it might just be a matter of time before the SEC secures one of the legal victories it's looking for, to be able to, go back to these exchanges and say, hey, now a court says so. So what are you going to do?
Mm-hmm. Sets a precedent. All right, Nick, thank you so much. Have yourself a great weekend. That was CoinDesk Managing Editor of Global Policy and Regulation, Nick Day.